words diesel and hot hatch are not often seen together, and that's for good reason, as a petrol-powered motor tends to suit the zippy character of a lightweight hatchback more often. However, if you want the fun chassis without the exorbitant fuel bill that comes along with the petrol-powered car, what do? Let me introduce you to the Ford Focus ST-3 diesel. It's a bit weird, so let's drive it. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Engine first, and of course it's a 2-litre diesel, which may sound boring, especially when it's only got 185 horsepower, but being a diesel, it does have a healthy amount of torque though. 400 newton meters in fact, which is certainly hot hatch level. Does it have hot hatch acceleration though? Let's find out and do the 30 to 70 sprint. Well, it's not exactly the fastest hot hatch by any means, but I'd say with a time of 6.62 seconds, it's borderline hot hatch quick. That time was done with just one gear as well, as changing from second to third slowed me down by just 1/10 of a second. If this was fitted with a dual clutch gearbox like the VW Golf GTD, I bet that it'd be on par or maybe even a little bit quicker. Now, if you want to see a full tour of the interior, please follow the link in the top right hand corner as I go through the interior of a petrol powered one there. The basic gist of it though is that it doesn't look that fancy, but has a surprising amount of stuff, especially if you go for the top of the range ST-3. Anyway, let's get on the road and have some fun. Okay then, back in another Ford Focus, and I do love these things. They are just great fun to drive. Going over speed bumps, yeah, it's a Ford, so it's like fairly stiff, but it's not overly stiff. I'd say it's actually really comparable to something like an Audi. It just has this really sophisticated feel to the suspension setup. Irons out all the bigger bumps, but it lets you know that it's a bit fun, basically. Gearbox is lovely as well, like even going from second to third. The gearbox just lets you abuse it, which is nice. Clutch is really good, it's got a lovely bite point. I think this it feels like a fairly new clutch to me because the bite point is right at the bottom of the pedal. But it does feel lovely to drive. But the thing for me that's always been great about these is just the steering and the chassis setup. Like, you get a really lovely balanced chassis and the steering is just gorgeous in this. Really is lovely. Now then, parking. Focus is kind of like BMW 1 Series, Volkswagen Golf Estate kind of size. So yeah, mate, it's fairly easy to park. It's hard to complain about, really. Visibility is fairly good. However, you do have quite a raked windscreen. And visibility out the sides, you kind of have to get the perfect position for the wing mirrors. But I mean, it is still fairly decent. Visibility out the back could be a little bit better, I think. But yeah, once you're in the space, very easy to get in and out of. It's just that the clutch is so much better in one of these than something like an Audi A3 though. It's just so consistent. Like, the weighting is just right. Like in the Audis and Golfs, it has a really pronounced bite point that I don't really like. So like, let me show you. So coming out of junctions here, it's just easy. Yeah, and you got loads of torque from this engine. Really does feel like every bit of 400 newton meters. If anything, it feels like 500. I think it's just the way they calibrate it. It just feels nice. It makes you want to drive like a bit of a dick. I'm not gonna lie. Or maybe I'm just a dick, but yeah. Let's reset our trip computer and see what MPG we can get on the motorway. This car's supposed to return over 60 miles per gallon, which is a pretty high figure. If it can do that, that makes it worth it over the petrol. So if you're doing a lot of miles, say you're doing like a 30 mile each way kind of commute, then this is going to be the one you want to go for, because handling wise so far, oh god, yes, it just feels so good to drive. Unbelievably composed. Like the second you turn into a corner, inside rear wheel starts lifting, the outside front wheel just bites into the road. It's so responsive. There's no other car that I can drive, no other hot hatch at least, that feels kind of like this. Like the Honda Civic Type R feels very serious, kind of handles the same, but just it has a slightly different feel to it. I mean, the closest thing to this would probably be the Hyundai i30N, I would say, in terms of just how it feels to drive. It's certainly not slow. Now, a lot of people get hooked up on those 0 to 60 figures, and they realise that you don't really do that in a day-to-day basis. You're doing those 20 mile an hour like squirts of acceleration. Anyway, before we get on the motorway, as usual, let's get the traction off and see how fun this is round a roundabout. Very easy to rev match in this as well. That is nice, isn't it? It's just that bite at the front end. See what I mean? It's just so playful. Every Ford is the same. The rear just always wants to come out, which is so much fun. The thing is, if you leave the traction control on, like most people are never really going to notice that. But if they ever get in a situation where they have to turn quite quickly, you're not going to understeer. You're just going to go round the corner, basically. But look, I mean, you can rev match 3 gears just like that. It's just bang, bang, bang. It's so easy to do. I'm going to have a lot of fun in this thing in a minute. Right, onto the motorway then. Let's see what the wind noise and road noise is like. Also, coming onto the motorway, let's put traction control back on actually. Yes, there we go. And then just plant your foot in third. It's just effortless, basically. Engine doesn't really feel like it's straining itself at all. It's going to 6th gear, it's got the accelerations like. So from like 60 to 70, plant your foot, you get nothing initially. After about a second though, all the torque comes in, and yeah, 2000 RPM, 70 miles an hour, get your cruise control on, chill out, and even move your armrest forward as well. And yeah, once you're on the motorway, this is a pretty genuinely decent car to spend a lot of time in. Got nice comfy seats, you've got a bit of extendable thigh support, there's a lot less road noise than people might expect. This is like fairly similar to something like an Audi A3 inside really. Wind noise also very low. I'm guessing because that windscreen is really raked, it kind of helps a bit. And yeah, it's just a lovely car to spend a lot of time in. Sound system's okay. The Sony sound system is definitely worth the upgrade though, I will say that. But yeah, suspension, even though it's fairly firm, it's very composed, irons out all the little bumps, you don't get anything really jolting into the cabin. I think, yeah, this is just where Ford do really well, you know. Like, their interiors aren't super fancy looking, but the fundamentals of a car, like road noise, wind noise, seat comfort, they just get that right. So yeah, you don't get the fancy design, but you do just get a fundamentally good car. I think a lot of manufacturers could learn from that, you know, focus more on just getting the driving and the comfort and the livability aspect sorted first, then make stuff look fancy. Like, for instance, the suspension in my BMW M140i isn't as nice as the suspension in this, and it should be better, and it's just nowhere near as good. And like, even the gear change, a manual 1 Series doesn't have a gear change as nice as this. Like, the steering, you can just dive it into a corner. It's just like, you can just feel the rear squirming around, and it really is lovely. And the way they map their engines is great as well. They always make them feel like really boosty, but they don't seem to run out of puff either. They have this lovely balance. Like, even the gear changes, like, you can be super snappy with the gear changes and the gearbox doesn't complain. Just fantastic. Anyway, let's get on the motorway and see what MPG we can manage. Motorway stint over. How did we do? Let's have a look. 51.1. Okay. Do you know what? That's not bad. I do think over a longer journey you might actually get above 60 mpg out of this thing, and that for a manual is very good indeed. Like, autos these days, because you've got so many gears, obviously you just get slightly better fuel economy. But yeah, you sit 2000 RPM, 70 miles an hour, perfectly comfortably. And yeah, as you can see, it's still going up, 52 now. So yeah, over a long journey, I reckon you'd get about 56 to 60 mpg, depending on how fast you're going, which way the wind's blowing, all that. And that's really decent. That's perfectly livable. That means to a tank, you're going to get like 600 miles out of this thing. It's brilliant, really. So far, not a lot to complain about. So the fuel economy is definitely better than the petrol car. But what happens when you get onto a B road? Is that figure really worth the fun that gets taken away by this diesel engine? Let's find out. Okay, back in what Ford calls sports mode. You're just turning the traction control off, really. But the car itself is already fairly sporty, even though it's a diesel. Let's see if this engine takes away from any of that lovely chassis. Once this Honda gets out of the way. He doesn't know where he's going, does he? Okay, take 2. Let's see if we can have some fun in this thing. It's just like, if you overcook it at the front, come off the throttle. It's so much fun. Then you can just plant your foot coming out of a corner. It's just brilliant, this chassis. So good. For a diesel, it loves to rev, like downshift into third, and it's got power all the way to the red line. Oh, it's wonderful, this thing, absolutely wonderful. So satisfying. When you get that heel and toe downshift just perfect, it feels so good as a driver. Alright, let's do a sound test actually, because it does sound quite good for a diesel. You see, it kind of has this like almost throaty note to it. Interesting. I think we're going to have to take those wind deflectors off. But yeah, coming around corners like this, you just get your foot down and you just dance with the chassis. So good. This car is very naughty. It just wants to play all the time. Just the front end bite is just crazy good in this thing. It's weird, like in most cars you get to that sort of steering angle of like there, and then the front end starts to push on. This, no, you get like over halfway through the lock and the front is still biting. So it's not that the rear has a lack of grip, it's that the front has so much grip that the rear just eventually lets go. It just feels, I mean, the word is sublime, really. I know it sounds a bit cringy, but it really is. You can get this flow that you just can't get with a lot of other cars. Just this steering, man. You really can just... You can drive this car on the throttle, and it's a front-wheel drive car. Like most cars, you put your foot down, round a corner, in front-wheel drive cars, and they just kind of plough forwards. Like, unfortunately, as great as the Cupra is, it does do that. Same with the Golf R, Audi S3, they're all fairly similar. But this, you know, it might not be the fastest thing around a track, but it's a bit more fun. Oh god, it's good. How can a 2-litre diesel Ford Focus be this fun to drive? And look at this, rev it all the way out. No, you don't even have to before you get to the speed limit in 3rd gear. Sweet as a nut, that's the way I describe this thing. And for a diesel, it sounds fairly throaty. Or actually, no, the word peppy, I'd say it's peppy for a diesel. So good. Yeah. I could drive this car forever and I wouldn't get bored. That's how good it is. Bang for buck in terms of fun, this is really up there, like really up there. It's so good, man. Anyway, brakes, 100-yard marker, yeah, brakes are good. It's weird, like, so the discs aren't massive on Fords, but they always have a really nice brake feel. They do run out quite quickly though. Like, if you were to take this to a track, it wouldn't do amazing. The brakes would overheat fairly quickly. But for fast road driving, I'd say they're about right. Anyway, let's take this thing to a little B road now, as I think it's going to feel right at home there. Okay, our favourite little B road. Oh yes, bit of torque steer, bit of wheel spin. Oh, it's so good down here, so good. I can place this thing where I want within the millimetre. Coming over bumps. This car just loves to be ragged around, just loves it. Trail brake it in. Oh wow. Okay, will we make 60 before the corner? Let's go. Come on, son. There we go, there's 60. Suspension deals with bumps so well. Steering is precise. Bit of texture. It's a very journalistic word, that, isn't it? Just feels great. It's the suspension though that really impresses. You can just feel everything that's going on. last time then. Second gear, you do get a bit of torque steer. But it's just fun. It's just fun. Just a fantastic bit of kit. It's a car you can just throw around and just not care about. It never does anything untoward, just looks after you. You could go way above the legal speed limit around there, and it just inspires you with so much confidence. Oh, I love these things, man. Absolutely love them. It is weird though, like, why haven't I bought one? So I love it, but I haven't bought one. And I do know the answer. So even though, technically, I think this is probably more fun than 99% of other hatchbacks out there. Like Hyundai i30N, on par with this, maybe the Honda Civic Type R, a couple of others that I probably haven't mentioned. But like this compared to my 140i, for instance, I have as much fun in this as I do my 140i. The only thing it's missing is a really nice engine note. But the reason I haven't bought one of these over something like my 140 is, I mean, A, I just prefer rear-wheel drive. But I suppose the better comparison would be, why haven't I bought one of these instead of the Cupra I used to have, for instance? And I think I just genuinely got caught up in acceleration figures and interior looks, you know, digital dashes, trying to impress, and snappy, you know, DSG gear changes, livability, that I didn't really think about what I really wanted in a car. I think that's something a lot of drivers, like the younger me, should have bought one of these. A lot of younger drivers should really focus on what they want out of a car rather than what they think other people want them to have, because at the end of the day, no one cares what car you drive. It's only you. And you know, after driving this now, if I were to go back to when I was 18 years old, I would buy one of these in a heartbeat. Good fuel economy, insanely fun to drive for the money. Like, these on a B road are hard to beat. I mean, the only thing that's more fun is probably a Fiesta ST. But yeah, it returns good fuel economy figures, fun to drive, comfortable. It's got all the technology you actually need. It's just missing a bit of that design. I think that's all it's missing. And yeah, back to, does this engine take away any of the fun over the petrol car? It doesn't take away the fun, but I do miss a bit of noise. I do think it could do with that petrol engine on a B road, because it does add just a little bit of theatre, especially once you start modding the exhaust. But yeah, if you have a long commute to work and you want something that is genuinely fun to drive, this is really difficult to beat, especially for the money. And on that note, I think we'll end this review. As always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like, and why not subscribe? As not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale, which unfortunately doesn't include this Ford Focus this week. Anyway, my name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.